So, what if the real key to building the future of AI wasn't found in some high-tech lab in Silicon Valley, but was actually hidden in an ancient text? Today, we're going to dig into a really wild idea, that a cognitive toolkit that's thousands of years old might just solve one of the biggest, toughest problems facing artificial general intelligence today.
This quote, it comes straight from the heart of Google's AGI research, and it perfectly nails the problem. Our best AIs right now are pretty much like that student. They are brilliant mimics for sure. They can ace the test because they memorize the book, chapter and verse. But do they actually understand the material? That's the real question, the one that stands between us and true artificial intelligence.
All right, here's our game plan for connecting these dots. First up, we're going to do a quick reality check on where AGI really is right now. Then, we'll dive into this ancient framework and two of its key tools, Gematria and Pardes. And finally, we'll pull it all together and see how this very old code could become the new gold standard for building a much smarter AI.
Okay, let's start with that reality check. The very people building these incredibly powerful models at places like Google DeepMind, they're the first to admit we still got a long, long way to go. These AIs are brilliant, no doubt, but they're also surprisingly brittle.
So the core issue really boils down to this distinction right here. AIs are absolute masters of what's called crystallized knowledge, basically just recalling facts and patterns from all the data they were trained on. But real intelligence, what we call fluid intelligence, well, that's all about adapting and solving problems you've literally never seen before. And that's the real frontier.
And to make that jump from just knowing facts to actually thinking, AIs need something that's, deeply human, metacognition. To put it simply, it's thinking about your own thinking. It's having the self-awareness to stop and ask, wait, am I sure about this? And to recognize the actual limits of what you know.
And this gets us right to the heart of the challenge. Can an AI tell the difference between being confidently correct and just guessing? Can it catch itself making a mistake? And maybe most importantly, can it stop itself from just hallucinating, totally making things up when it hits a wall and doesn't know the answer? As of now, the answer is often no, and that's a huge, huge problem if we want to build AI we can actually trust.
So to solve this very futuristic problem, we are going to look somewhere you would never expect, deep, deep into the past.
What if I told you that a system for developing these exact metacognitive skills, for knowing what you know and for verifying what's true, has actually been around for millennia, and that it's all embedded in an ancient tradition of reading?
We're talking about a field called Hebrew hermeneutics. Now, hermeneutics is really just a fancy word for the practice of interpretation. And in this ancient tradition, it evolved into this incredibly powerful system for checking if a text is true and for exploring all these different layers of meaning. We're going to look at it not as religion, but as a fascinating cognitive toolkit. Okay, so the first tool in this ancient toolkit is something called gematria. And you can think of it like the original analog checksum for making sure something is true.
The concept itself it's really elegant. In Hebrew, every single letter also doubles as a number. This means any word or any sentence also has a specific numerical value, kind of like a weight. And this lets you cross-reference and check for consistency in a really unique way.
And this is where a fascinating parallel pops up. Ancient scribes, they faced this massive challenge. How do you copy these super complex texts by hand perfectly without a single error sneaking in over centuries? Well, modern AI engineers face a weirdly similar problem. How do you stop your AI models from hallucinating, from just drifting away from the facts?
So here's how it worked. A scribe would copy a line of text. Then he would literally add up the numerical value of every single letter. After that, he'd compare that total to the known correct number. And if the numbers didn't match, boom, he knew there was a mistake somewhere in the line and he had to rewrite it. It was a built-in self-correcting mechanism. Just imagine an AI that could do that for itself.
But just verifying the facts, that's only half the battle, right? What about understanding deeper meaning? That brings us to our second tool, a framework called Pardes, which I really like to think of as a kind of metacognitive ladder. Pardes basically lays out 4 distinct levels of understanding. You start at the bottom with pshat. That's the simple, literal meaning. Then you climb up to remez, which is the hinted or allegorical meaning. After that is drash, where you start seeking out connections and comparisons. And at the very top, you have sod, the secret, hidden, really profound layer of understanding.
And here is the crucial link back to AI. Today's models, they are stuck on the very first rung of this ladder.
They are absolute masters of shot, of the literal text, but they really struggle to climb any higher, to get the hints, the metaphors, the deep connections. But true intelligence, well, that requires the whole climb.
Okay, so let's pull all of this together. How can this ancient framework actually help us build and measure a wiser, more solid AI?
This brings us to one last really powerful concept that basically acts as the perfect antidote to AI hallucinations. It's the Hebrew word davar. What's so amazing about it is that it means both word and thing or substance. The whole philosophy here is that language isn't just a bunch of abstract symbols floating around. It has to be tied, intrinsically linked to real, tangible, verifiable stuff.
And this is where this ancient toolkit maps perfectly onto our modern problem. Gematria, the checksum. It gives us a blueprint for an AI that can check its own work, right? An internal fact checker. The Pardes ladder gives us a way to measure its depth of understanding, to see if it knows what it doesn't know. And the idea of davar gives us that crucial final piece. It demands that the AI grounds all its language in reality. All of a sudden, you've got a complete framework for a much more robust AI.
You know, this isn't just some neat philosophical idea. This ancient framework gives us a totally new language and a concrete model for designing the very benchmarks that Google DeepMind is asking for. We're talking about tests that can actually measure an AI's ability to self-correct, to gauge its own confidence, and to connect its words to the real world.
So it leaves us with this one kind of mind-bending thought. As we're building these incredibly complex artificial minds, maybe the blueprint for making them truly intelligent, self-aware, grounded, and even wise, has been waiting for us this whole time, just hidden in one of the world's oldest codes.